Hello and welcome to Explore the Arts with CBS News New York. I'm Dana Tyler, and right here with me, CBS 2 reporter, my fellow art lover and good friend Dave Carlin.
Exploring this magical world.
It's so wonderful because right here we have a treasure trove of choices in New York and the tri-state area to experience art from all over the world. In the city especially, let's take a look at some museums and exhibitions that you can check out right now.
Now, there are so many to choose from, but we narrowed down this list to a varied list of exhibitions, plus immersive adventures, from the masters we all know to some up-and-comers who will blow your mind.
Yes, and we are going to start with a headliner show of paintings and drawings through the eyes of a New Yorker, Edward Hopper's New York. The exhibition is at the Whitney Museum of American Art.
And the Whitney Museum is just a stunner of architecture.
Itself.
So it's a work of art itself.
Yes.
It's located on Gansevoort Street.
In the Meatpacking District, right next to the High Line. And what's important here now, because this is not too far from where Hopper lived and worked from 1908 to 1967. And the Whitney says his art, this exhibition, shows us a changing and a changeless New York City. New Yorkers and tourists fill the Whitney's fifth-floor galleries to see what mesmerized Edward Hopper, a Greenwich Village artist. Kim Conity is the curator of drawings and prints.
In Morning Sun, we have a composition that is very much, centered on the sort of interior experience, perhaps, of this figure. Light is a main character.
More than 200 works by Hopper spanning more than half a century show how he saw the city that had him awestruck since he was a boy growing up in Nyack. In the early 1900s, he commuted to art school in the city. This self-portrait a likely assignment. He first paid the bills working as a magazine illustrator.
When he was exploring the city, which he did by foot, he did via the elevated trains, he was using his pencil and sketchbook as his camera, finding either general compositions of interest and also small details in buildings that might end up coming into play in another composition.
Arranged by themes, you can see Hopper's process as a realist through his detailed notebooks and early sketches of some paintings, including Macomb's Dam Bridge, which is in the horizontal city. Hopper was known to say, "I just never cared about the vertical."
So at a moment when I think much of the city was looking up, was seeing the Chrysler Building going up, the Empire State Building, he was looking across.
This one over here, Kim, is one of the most well-known.
Yes.
Hopper's iconic oil on canvas called Early Sunday Morning.
You have no figures in the painting, and yet absolutely a sense that this is an inhabited space.
He did paint people, often in public and seemingly private scenes, by using windows, and often there's the stillness of introspection and loneliness. Hopper's model was his wife of 43 years, Josephine, an artist too. Their apartment in Washington Square was also their studio. This is part of the exhibition. It's a place to sit down and rest, but oh boy.
Yes, exactly.
We have Edward Hopper eyes here, right?
Precisely the kind of view that Hopper loved so much about the city. And this area downtown, as it was during Hopper's time, is constantly changing.
A constant in the Hoppers' lives, they were devoted and frugal New York theater goers. A passion curator Kim Conity says can be drawn from Hopper's 1966 painting, Two Comedians.
And so one imagines that in some way he probably knew this was the last painting. It's almost as if it's he and Josephine taking a final bow.
Hopper's widow bequeathed everything in their village studio, 2,500 paintings, drawings, and prints in 1968 to the Whitney Museum of American Art, now just a mile away from their fourth-floor walk-up. The Whitney has the largest Edward Hopper collection in the world.
Great story, Dana. Edward Hopper, his work was such a gift to New York City.
So just interesting how he wasn't out there with a camera. He's looking at things, his rooftop. He's, yes, adding some things he's imagined. And I just love the way they organize it through different themes. But, it's not like the Empire State Building. You're not going to see famous places. This is everyday New York through Edward Hopper's eyes.
What a master.
Yeah. So if you'd like to see this, Edward Hopper's New York at the Whitney Museum, it runs through March 5th. They do timed tickets here to manage the flow of people in the exhibition. Museum tickets are $25 for adults, $18 for students and seniors. You can sign up ahead of time online.
Described as a must-see.
A must-see, indeed. Now to two exhibitions showing how artists reflect the people in their communities. First, Black is Beautiful. It's at the New York Historical Society on Manhattan's Upper West Side.
It is, and CBS News New York, Jesse Mitchell, says this Harlem-based photographer's work takes us back to the 50s and the 60s.
Afros and album covers adorn the walls of Black is Beautiful at the New York Historical Society. The traveling exhibit has made its way back to the home of photographer Kwame Brathwaite, whose son Kwame Jr. helped select a striking series of images.
It gives you the perspective of actually being photographed by him, one of the first selfies.
Brathwaite captured Harlem at a time of pride in culture and connection to the continent of Africa.
These men and women together, I love this juxtaposition. It speaks volumes to, standing up for yourself and believing who you are.
The Brathwaite family received support from the Society as well as Aperture to put together the installation, which includes an immersive audio experience and companion coffee table book. This wasn't always considered beautiful, was it?
Right. They taught us that we could embrace a different standard. You look at things like the Crown Act, which is still, fighting for the ability to wear your hair in a natural hairstyle. There's still things that are prevalent.
The impact is present in the images from protests to parades.
You look at the children and you see them looking up at the adults in the photograph, and it's giving children a way to really understand who they are and giving them heroes to look up to.
One venue drew Brathwaite's focus as an icon of culture, the Apollo Theater.
The official photographer amateur night, nice to go there and be in the front row.
His studio stood just a few doors down.
It's just a critical part of just the community and how people enjoy things.
Here, on this stretch of street named after his uncle Alumbe, the younger Brathwaite reflects on the lessons and legacy his family leaves for the future.
It's really just an honor that that's able to be here, and then right across the street from the new Studio Museum.
The landscape may have changed, but the spirit of Harlem and the heart of its culture remain the same. In Harlem, Jesse Mitchell, CBS 2 News.
A fantastic exhibit in the way that it delights you and informs you.
Yes.
So vibrant and beautiful.
And so personal to Mr. Brathwaite and his family. It's just one of those things where you learn so much about people. Sometimes we don't stop and do that.
That's what art can do.
It can. Black is Beautiful is at the New York Historical Society through January 15th. Tickets are $22 for adults, $17 for seniors, and $13 for students. Okay, so from 2D to 3D and an art show called, this name even, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't it kind of swagger and tenderness? This is at the Bronx Museum of the Arts.
I know, it runs the gamut because you'll see portraits of all kinds of people from the South Bronx. CBS News New York's Zinnia Maldonado got a chance to meet the two artists.
It all started back in 1979. Local artists John Ahern and Rigoberto Torres began casting people from the South Bronx, continuing to do so for nearly 4 decades. And today, more than 60 portraits are now on display at the Bronx Museum of the Arts. It's the first time the artworks are exhibited together at home for the very people represented therein.
It just gives you Bronx. It just gives you this is it. This is me.
Casting involves making a mold and pouring liquid material onto the skin. The result, a lifelike self-portrait. Bronx resident Kiara Beltran was casted by the artist duo several years ago. She says to see not only herself, but many members of her family.
My uncle has a stereo and basketball.
Now on display for the world to see is unbelievable.
It definitely feels good. It's definitely, especially with the pearl earring, because everyone knows me as Kiara with the pearls.
The exhibition mirrors all different residents of the South Bronx, from firefighters to fortune tellers to bakers to lovers of basketball.
You look at every statue and it tells a story. Everyone has an important person with them, or an object, an animal.
Artists John and Rigoberto say to share their unique experience of casting people right in the middle of a neighborhood or inside of someone's home gives more meaning to the art on display.
Many of the pieces in the show have already been shared by people of the Bronx locally. But in this show, we can make it a more public show that everybody can see it together. There's a lot of love in these sculptures, and there's a lot of feelings for each other.
You're bringing some kind of a happiness or some kind of thrill that people enjoy seeing themselves being part of it.
Literary activist Ron Kavanaugh, who co-organized the exhibition, says the show's main goal, bring attention to the value of every individual who has helped shape the proud, unique, and influential community of the South Bronx.
This exhibition is about them. It is about their history. It's about their culture. This is not some abstract exhibition of people they've never seen or will never meet. These are their neighbors.
It's giving a message, it's giving a story, it's giving the truth.
Zinnia Maldonado, CBS 2 News.
And you know what else? Again, another great opportunity to hear from the artists themselves. I just think that's so fascinating. When I hear the word casting, we think of roles, but, you know, he's talking about the sculpture of the work.
And that creating a very intimate relationship between the artist and his subject.
Sure did.
Really getting it really, really accurate. It's a beautiful thing, and you can see swagger and tenderness at the Bronx Museum of the Arts until April 30th. Admission is free.
Broadway.
Oh, here we go.
Somebody say Broadway. Let's put on a show. So, no secret, Dave and I both love Broadway. We report on it, and we've been waiting for this museum to open for a long time. You've been there.
Oh, it's magnificent. It's the new Museum of Broadway, and it's the city's first permanent museum, and it opened back in November. And we learn about the razzle-dazzle, and we see the behind-the-scenes stuff, and it's dedicated to all things theater. So here, let's take a look inside.
First stop, the glamour and exuberance of Ziegfeld Follies. And then the landmark, Showboat, with some classic lyrics at your fingertips.
But he don't seem to care.
We get to step inside the shows we love.
When the wind comes right behind the rain. Darling, you'll never go away again.
If I were a rich man,
then peace will guide the planet.
And I think Broadway takes a lot of chances. They were shows that pushed boundaries, whether that be culturally or the actual art form.
A highlight is the artwork of the great Al Hirschfeld.
He could say in a line what it took writers to do paragraphs. He drew more Broadway posters than any other artist. He was in the newspaper, in the New York Times on average every other week for 75 years.
His choices.
Broadway and the American musical are very much a reflection of American consciousness.
On Broadway, you heard that song. It's actually on West 45th Street, and it is a magnificent exhibit.
I cannot imagine how much, and I'm sure they're going to be rotating things through it, but what I think is so great is, you know, we see what we see on the stage, and so much credit, you know, needs to go, and we need to understand all the processes of everybody, the creative team, the technical teams, the stage crews, just there's so much, and you can see it there.
And you get it. You get various exhibits about the process.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, it's fascinating.
Where is it?
West 45th Street.
Yes, the Museum of Broadway is in Times Square. It's open every day. Tickets are $43 for adults, $36 for senior citizens, and $33 for students. Coming up, art meets technology. We'll get immersed in a show that allows you to step inside the artist's work and experience their world in a whole new way. Later, recognizing the voices of those who suffered just for being themselves, we will introduce you to a photographer whose true self was kept hidden until years after her death.
You've read The Godfather, right?
The Godfather? Sure, who hasn't?
We've been all over town. No one wants to make this movie, so I need you to produce it.
We need someone who understands Italians. For instance, Ford Coppola. He's got a great vision. We need hits. I got no cast.
Do you think Pacino's actually a possibility?
No Pacino. Cut it! Can one thing go right with this picture? The Godfather
is bringing us too many problems. You want me to take care of it?
You're still gonna try and make this thing?
I got no choice.
I'm not running either.
This is what it's all about. The excitement. The thrill. That's movie magic, baby.
Welcome back. Dave and I are sharing the arts, offering some choices for you to explore. And for more than 20 years, there's been a new way of showing and interpreting art. It's become quite popular.
Oh, very
right?
popular, immersive experiences. You know, the clever use of technology to bring an artist's work to life in a whole new way, often with projections, virtual reality, interactive spaces. And we've seen several in the city so far this year. And there was an experience that took you inside the story of King Tut. And it comes 100 years after his tomb was discovered. A virtual museum dedicated to the stories of members of the LGBTQ community. Also, a permanent space in Lower Manhattan dedicated to digital art. It's called Hall de Lumière, and right now it's showing the work of painter Gustav Klimt. And the exhibition is called Gold in Motion.
You know, I see it, and it's big, and it's often loud.
Oh, it's immersive. It's something you walk into.
That's the word, yeah.
Did you see some of the images there? I mean, with the Tut one, you know, fire rages up and, you know, floor to ceiling, 3 stories high. Beautiful, beautiful way to experience artifacts that may not be there, the original ones in person, but it gives you the appreciation for them. So it doesn't replace traditional exhibitions.
No.
It adds to and enhances the experience.
I'm also thinking, you know, there's like, Mom, no, I don't want to go to the museum, or adults who say, I don't want to go to the museum. This is a different option that shares the wealth and, you know, just how much art is part of our history.
And taps into technology.
And taps into
which a lot of people just love the technology, so they'll be blown away by that as well.
Yes.
It's not just, you know, a painting, which is wonderful, but it's also bringing it to life, and then also doing a lot of the selfie opportunities and fun things that people do love right now.
Nice. Monet.
Yes, Monet. Monet's Garden. I enjoyed going in there. That's another immersive experience. It looks at the work of Claude Monet. And here's a look at that through the eyes of a pair of visitors.
Claude Monet is by far my true hero in the art world.
For her birthday, Julia Amelich was gifted a surprise visit to this Monet art experience by Ulrika Drax Johansson.
But Monet wants more.
These friends from Greenwich, Connecticut took a kind of bath in Monet's garden, celebrating the French painter who lived from 1840 to 1926.
How he combined the colors with the nature and lilies, and the scent in this exhibition is absolutely everything. It's to die for.
This installation at Manhattan's 30 Wall Street fills you up with the color palette. You interact with brush strokes.
Oh my God. This is incredible.
And your nose will notice.
It's the best thing, and also with the scent from water lilies. It's just incredible.
And also you smell the water lily?
I do.
Nepomuk Shessel is executive director of Monet's Garden.
He started right in the 1800s, and the interesting thing is that he started when photography became more popular. He started to shift away his art. So he was one of the first ones to start painting light and emotions. Also, he invented Impressionism, the way he used his brush, for example. We also want visitors to have a certain interaction with the art, right? So that they feel connected.
Put yourself in the art and create your own. Let's show you. So this is my water lily. Not so great. And let me show you what happens. Put it right in here. And then it winds up right over here. That is so cool. For some, the journey peaks with a Monet-inspired electric hug.
Happy birthday, thank you.
Bursting with feel-good vibes you get from mixing a beloved artist with fresh technology.
Monet's Garden is open right now in the Financial District. The show runs through February 26. Tickets are $35 for adults, $25 for kids.
Your artwork
Was horrible.
Come on.
I want to do over on the water lily. But then, like, did you see? You add it to the pond.
It was fantastic and
Very
much less expensive than a trip to Paris.
Just a little.
And then on to the train to Giverny. Up next, on the outside, it's a home. On the inside, so much more. We're going to explore the arts on Staten Island to learn about a pioneering photographer who once lived there.
Survivors ready. Go!
TV on CBS. Go! Is big.
Ooh, it's on!
And just getting bigger.
Let's get this party started.
FBI, anybody home?
Oh. Feeling good about being weightless right about now?
Bravo.
All right, team, here we go.
Get you in the bed, guys.
I'm so proud of you.
I'm glad to be here.
Me too.
What am I missing?
Way too much from what I hear.
TV is bigger on CBS.
Our final museum tells the life story of photographer Alice Austen.
Austen was a daring artist for her time, and the impact of her own queer identity on her work wasn't recognized until years later. CBS News New York's Mary Calvi has the story.
This is Alice Austen with her partner of more than 50 years, Gertrude Tate. But to fully understand who Austen was, we first have to know about where she lived, spending most of her 86 years in this home, known as Clear Comfort on Staten Island.
We are one of New York's historic houses. The bones of the house were built in 1690s. We're a photographic museum because we represent the life and work of our namesake, Alice Austen.
Victoria Munro is the executive director of the Alice Austen House.
Recognizing her queer identity was essential to understanding her work and understanding her life. We can dig deeper into all of the themes that Alice explored within her photography.
Munro says the home was a muse for Austen, a backdrop for some of her notable images. But beyond that, Austen, born in 1866, is recognized as one of the first woman photographers to document life outside of a studio.
Whether that be taking her camera to the streets of Manhattan and photographing immigrants at work, documenting the conditions and the people on the quarantine stations.
But it's the most personal aspects of her life and work that help reshape the understanding of who she was and how she lived.
Now, when we're talking about Alice's queer photographs, these very personal photographs would have been meant for circulation privately most likely with her circle of friends. So we see cross-dressing, very, very risque short skirts. They're just absolutely wonderful and give us a window into her world.
Austin, an only child of a wealthy family, was encouraged to explore her varied interests.
It's not just the photography that she's so confident and bold in exploring. Alice starts all of these clubs. She's creating safe spaces for women and queer women. So she starts the Staten Island Garden Club. She is the founding member of the Staten Island Bicycle Club. And remember, bicycles were key in part of women's emancipation. Their clothing, their ability to go out without being chaperoned by a man. She was a champion tennis player here on Staten Island.
Yet for all Austin accomplished, it wasn't until 1970, nearly 20 years after her death, that her relationship with Tate was celebrated for what it was, and her home added to the LGBT site for historic places, the first in New York City devoted to a woman to receive that designation.
We've made great pains here at the Alice Austin House to really bring ourselves to the forefront of LGBTQ interpretation at historic sites. We center Alice's narrative as living her life with Gertrude Tate in our story, on our walls, through her photographs, and through our education and public programs.
Wow. What a beautiful thing that now the entirety of her story and her marvelous work can be all together, a full, complete picture.
It really is, and it is a permanent museum on Staten Island. Tickets are $10 for adults, $6 for students and seniors. And just again, that shows you, like, there are so many treasures out there, museums you might not have heard of, and we hope we're helping you with some ideas, and we have more.
Yes, it's helping me with ideas. I got to see that, and I got to see that, and I got to see that.
Right.
But here's some you got to see. Over the summer, the Jackie Robinson Museum opened in Lower Manhattan. The space tells the story of the iconic, legendary baseball player and civil rights leader who broke the Major League Baseball color barrier. The museum is just loaded with artifacts, memorabilia, interactive experiences, too.
Also, Upper East Side, the Museum of the City of New York. The exhibition's called Food in New York, Bigger Than the Plate. This show highlights the foods that have kept the city running. Pizza, oysters, bagels, and you can... Hot dog. You can see the exhibit through September 30th.
And on Staten Island, step into this little-known museum to get the stories of a very important maritime figure, and we're talking about lighthouses. It's a National Lighthouse Museum located just steps from the Staten Island Ferry Terminal and teaching us the history of lighthouses and their vital contributions to our city and our history. And of course, we love the sight and we love the sound.
So many stories. Thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate it here on CBS News New York as we explore the arts. I'm Dana Tyler.
And I'm Dave Carlin. Go out and explore the arts.
Enjoy. To see more of our stories on these art exhibitions and museums in the city and around the tri-state area, visit our website, cbsnewyork.com.